Honey, what'd you say your name is again?
Mary Williams. Somehow it didn't seem that I said it was Mary before, so I didn't look up. Seemed to me I said it was Sarah, so I felt kind of concerned, and I was afeared maybe I was looking it too. I wish the woman would say something more. The longer she said still, the more uneasier I was, but now she says,
Honey, I thought you said your name was Sarah when you first come in.
well, yes, it is. Sarah's my first name, and Mary's my middle name, and some people call me Sarah, and some people call me Mary.
Oh, that's the way of it?
Well, the woman fell to talking about how hard times was, and how poor they had to live, and how the rats was as free as if they owned the place, and so forth and so on. And then I got easy again. She was right about the rats. You'd see one stick his nose out of a hole in the corner every little while. She said she had to have things handy to throw at them when she was alone, or they wouldn't give her no peace. She showed me a bar of lead twisted up into a knot, and she said that she was a good shot with it generally, but she'd wrenched her arm a day or two ago and didn't know whether she could throw true now. But she watched for a chance, and directly she banged away at that rat, but she missed him wide and said, ouch, hurt her arm so. Then she told me to try for the next one. I wanted to be getting away before the old man got back, but of course I didn't let on. I got the thing, and the first rat that showed his nose I let drive. And if he'd have stayed where he was, he would have been a tolerable sick rat. She said that was first rate, and she reckoned I would have the next one. She went and got a lump of lead and fetched it back and brought along a hank of yarn, which she wanted me to help her with. I held up my two hands, and she put back the hank over them, and went on talking about her and her husband's matters, but she broke off to say,
Now keep your eye on those rats, and keep this lead ball in your lap handy. Come now, what's your real name?
What, Mom?
What is your real name? Is it Bill or Bob or Tom, or what is it?
Please don't poke fun at a poor little girl like me, Mom. If I'm in the way here, I'll...
No, you won't. Sit down and stay where you are. I ain't going to hurt you, and I ain't going to tell on you nother. You just tell me your secret and trust me. I'll keep, and what's more, I'll help you. So am my old man, if you want him to. You see, you're a runaway apprentice, that's all. It ain't anything. There ain't any harm in it. You've been treated bad, and you made your mind up to cut. Bless you, child, I wouldn't tell on you. Tell me all about it now. That's a good boy.
So I said it wouldn't be no use to try and play it any longer, and I would just make a clean breast and tell her everything. But she mustn't go back on her promise. Then I told her my father and mother was dead, and the law had bound me out to a mean old farmer in the country 30 miles back from the river. He treated me so bad I couldn't stand it any longer. He went away to be gone a couple of days, and so I took my chance and stole some of his daughter's old clothes and cleared out. And I'd been 3 nights in coming the 30 mile. I traveled nights and hid daytimes and slept. The bag of bread and meat I carried from home lasted all the way, and I had plenty. I said I believed my Uncle Abner Moore would take care of me, and so that's why I struck out for this old town of Goshen.
Goshen, child, this ain't Goshen. This is St. Petersburg. Goshen's 10 miles further up the river. Who told you this was Goshen?
Why, a man I met at daybreak this morning, just as I was going to turn into the woods for my regular sleep. He told me when the roads forked I must take a right hand, and 5 mile would take me straight to Goshen.
He was drunk, I reckon. He told you just exactly wrong.
Well, he did act like he was drunk, but it ain't no matter now. I gotta be moving along. I'll fetch Goshen before daylight.
Hold on a minute. I'll put you up a snack tea. You might want it.
Well, thank you, ma'am.
Say, when a cow's laying down, which end of her gets up first? Answer up prompt. Now, don't stop to study over it. Which end gets up first?
The hind end, Mum.
Well then, a horse?
The forward end, Mum.
Which side of a tree does the moss grow on?
North side.
If 15 cows is browsing down a hillside, how many of them eats with their heads pointing the same direction?
The whole 15, Mum.
Well, I reckon you have lived in the country. I thought maybe you was trying to hocus me again. What's your real name now?
George Peters, Mum.
Well, try to remember it, George. Don't forget and tell me it's Alexander before you go, and then get out of it by saying it's George Alexander when I catch you. And don't go about women that old calico. You do a girl tolerable poor, but you might fool men, maybe. Bless you, child. When you set out to thread a needle, don't hold the thread still and fetch the needle up to it. Hold the needle still and poke the thread at it. That's the way a woman most always does, but a man always does the other way. And when you throw at a rat or anything, hit yourself up on a tiptoe and fetch your hand up over your head as awkward as you can and miss your rat by about 6 or 7 foot. Throw stiff-armed from the shoulder, like there was a pivot there for it to turn on, like a girl, not from the wrist and elbow with your arm out to one side like a boy. And mind you, when our girl tries to catch anything in her lap, she throws her knees up high. She don't clap them together the way you did when you catch that lump o' lead. Why, I spotted you for a boy when you was threading the needle, and I contrived the other things just to make certain. Now, trot along to your uncle, Sarah Mary Williams George Alexander Peters, and if you do get into trouble, you send word to Miss Judith Loftus, which is me, and I'll do what I can to get you out of it. Keep the river road all the way, and next time you tramp, take shoes and socks with you. The river road's a rocky one, and your feet'll be in a condition when you get to Goshen, I reckon.
Then the Reverend Hobson opened up, slow and solemn, and begun to talk. And straight off the most outrageous row busted out in the cellar a body ever heard. It was only one dog, but he made the most powerful racket. Long-legged undertaker make a sign to the preacher as much as to say, "Don't you worry, just depend on me." Then he stooped down and began to glide along the wall. Then in about 2 seconds we heard a whack. The dog, he finished up with the most amazing howl or two, and then everything was dead still, and the parson begun his solemn talk where he left off. In a minute or two, here comes this undertaker's back and shoulders gliding along the wall again, and so he glided, and says in a kind of coarse whisper,
"He had a rat."
Then he drooped down and glided along the wall again to his place. You could see it was a great satisfaction to the people, because naturally they wanted to know. And there aren't no more popular man in town than what the undertaker was. Miss Watson's slave, Jim, had a hairball as big as your fist, which had been took out of the fourth stomach of an ox, and he sued to do magic with it. He said there was a spirit inside of it, and it knowed everything. So I went to him that night and told him Pap was here again, for I found his tracks in the snow. What I wanted to know was, what was he going to do, and what was he going to say? Jim got out his hairball and said something over it, then he held it up and dropped it on the floor. It felt pretty solid, and only rolled about an inch. Jim tried it again, and another time. It acted just the same way. Jim got down on his knees and put his ear right up against it and listened. But it weren't no use. He said it wouldn't talk. He said sometimes it wouldn't talk without money. I told him I had an old slick counterfeit quarter that weren't no good because the brass showed through the silver a little. It wouldn't pass nohow, even if the brass didn't show, because it was so slick it felt greasy. And so that would tell on it every time. I reckoned I wouldn't say nothing about the dollar I got from the judge. I said it was pretty bad money, but maybe the hairball would take it, because maybe it didn't know the difference. Jim smelt it and bit it and rubbed it, and said he would manage so the hairball would think it was good. Jim put the quarter under the hairball and got down and listened again. This time he said the hairball was all right. He said it would take my whole fortune if I wanted it to. I says, go on. So the hairball talked to Jim, and Jim told it to me. He says,
"Your old father don't know yet what he's going to do. Sometimes he expect he'll go away. Then again, he expect he'll stay. The best way is to rest easy and let the old man take his own way. There's 2 angels hovering around about him. But one of them is white and shiny, and the other one's black. The white one gets him to go right a little while. Then the black one sail in and bust it all up. The boy can't tell yet which one. One is light, the other is dark. One is rich, we're poor. Use the poor one first, and then one first and the rich one by and by. You want to keep away from the water as much as you can, and the rest don't run no risk. Cases down in the bills that you're going to get hung."
Yes, my great-grandfather, eldest son of the Duke of Bridgewater, heir of freedom, married here and died, leaving a son. His own father dying out about the same time. The second son of the late Duke seized the states and title. Infant real Duke was ignored. I am the lineal descendant of that infant. I am the rightful Duke of Bridgewater, and here I am, forlorn, torn from my high estate, hunted of men, despite of the cold world, ragged, worn, heartbroken, and degraded to the companionship of fellows on a raft.
Jim pitched him ever so much, and so did I. We tried to comfort him, but he said it weren't much use. He couldn't be much comforted. Said if we was a mind to acknowledge him, that would do him more good than most anything else. So we said we would, if he would tell us how. He said we ought to bow, when we spoke to him and say, "Your Grace," or "My Lord," or "Your Lordship." And he wouldn't mind it if we called him plain Bridgewater, which he said was a title anyway, and not a name. And one of us ought to wait on him at dinner, and do any little thing for him he wanted done. But the old man got pretty silent by and by, didn't have much to say, and didn't look pretty comfortable over all that petting that was going on around the Duke. He seemed to have something on his mind. So, along in the afternoon, he says,
Looky here, Bilgewater. I'm nation sorry for you, but you ain't the only person that's had troubles like that.
No.
No, you ain't. You ain't the only person that's been snaked down wrongfully out in a high place.
Alas.
No, you ain't the only person that had a secret of his birth.
Hold. What do you mean?
Bilgewater, can I trust you?
To the bitter death. The secret of your being. Speak.
Bilgewater, I am the late Dolphin.
You are what?
Yes, my friend, it is too true. Your eyes is looking at this very moment on the poor disappeared Dolphin, Louis the 17th, son of Louis the 16th and Mary Antoinette.
"You bet you, Jim, and me stared this time." Then the Duke says,
You? At your age? No, you mean the late Charlemagne. You must be 600 or 700 years old at the very least.
Trouble has done it, Bilgewater. Trouble has done it. Trouble has brung these gray hairs and this premature balditude. Yes, gentlemen, you see before you, in blue jeans and misery, the wandering, exiled, trampled on, and suffering rightful king of France.
I looked over there to see who it was, and it was that Colonel Sherburne. He was standing perfectly still in the street, and had his pistol raised in his right hand, not aiming it, but holding it out, with the barrel tilted up towards the sky.
Boggs!
Huh? Oh, Lord! Don't shoot!
Oh, Lordy! They killed
Oh my God! He killed him!
Oh my God, he's
Oh my
dead!
Jesus!
Oh my gosh!
What are we gonna do?
What should we...
We should lynch him.
Lynch him!
Well, by and by, somebody said Sherburne ought to be lynched. And in about a minute, everybody was saying it. So away they went, mad and yelling. They swarmed up in front of Sherburne's, of his little front porch, with the gun in his hand.
The idea of you lynching anybody, it's amusing. The idea of you thinking you had the pluck enough to lynch a man because you're brave enough to tar and feather poor friendless cast out women that come along here. Did that make you think you had grit enough to lay your hands on a man? Why, a man's safe in the hands of 10,000 of your kind, as long as it's daytime and you're not behind him. You didn't want to come. The average man don't like trouble and danger. You don't like trouble and danger. But if only half a man, like Buck Harkness there, shouts, "Lynch him! Lynch him!" you're afraid to back down. Afraid to be found out what you are. Cowards. So you raise and yell and hang yourself on that half a man's coattail and come raging up here swearing big things that you're gonna do. The pitifulest thing out is a mob, and that's what an army is, a mob. They don't fight with courage that's born in them, but with courage that's borrowed from their masters and their officers. But a mob without a man at the head is beneath pitifulness. Now the thing for you to do is dry up your coattails and go home and crawl in a hole. If any real lynching is going to be done, it'll be done in the dark, southern fashion. And when they come, they'll bring their masks and fetch a man. And they'll leave and take your half a man with you.
The crowd washed back sudden, and then broke all apart, and went tearing off every which way. And Buck Harkness, he heeled it after them, looking tolerable cheap. I could have stayed if I wanted to, but I didn't want to.